Good evening, everybody. My name is Tim Rogers. I'm one of the vice presidents at the American University of Paris and the director of enrollment management. I'm absolutely delighted to introduce you to my colleague, Darcee Caron, who is the director of experiential learning, one of the most critical parts of your undergraduate experience, and she will be giving you a brief introduction to her role. And then this is a Q&A session, so we're going to be opening up to questions. And Darcee, just so you know, I've got plenty of questions for you as well. So this is Darcee.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Tim, for introducing me and for inviting me to talk to all of these new prospective students at AUP. So, as you said, I'm going to tell everyone a little bit about what I do, because for a lot of people, experiential learning is a new phrase. So I thought maybe I could explain a bit about what experiential learning is. So there are a lot of definitions of this term, but for most people it means a few things. So I think everybody can see our slides and they can read along, but essentially most people agree that experiential learning happens when theory turns into practice, when thinking and reflection are accompanied by doing, when you try stuff, or when you make connections with real life or the real world. So traditional examples of experiential learning are things that we've all heard about. Things like internships and study trips and mentored research and long-term projects and student leadership opportunities. These are all examples of experiential learning, and they're all things that happen at AUP.
So are these kind of things, Darcee, that everybody does?
These are the kind of things that many students do at AUP. I would say the vast majority of students at AUP take advantage of probably more than one experiential learning opportunity while they're enrolled.
So you're a freshman student and you're coming into Paris for your first semester. How many people knock on your door saying, I want experiential learning now?
So they never use that phrasing. But we do have probably some of the most common things for freshmen to get involved with are study trips and student leadership opportunities. So at AUP, we've got a program or a whole office dedicated to study trips, which are, well, they take many forms, but there are probably somewhere around 16 to 20 of them offered every semester. These are trips that are actually created and guided by faculty. They pair up with courses, but you don't have to be taking the course to go on them. And they are all over Europe and also all over the world. Some of them are long. They can be up to a week and a half. And some are quite short, maybe only a few days over the weekend. And so study trips are really common. And of course, student leadership opportunities are really common. So, for example, joining a club or taking on a volunteer opportunity. These are things that a freshman can easily get involved in and that are a really great way to kind of find your way into the AUP community.
Great. So everybody out there, just should have said this right at the start, you all have a question box that you can type questions to Darcee and I, mostly Darcee, so please don't feel shy. One of the characteristics of an AUP student is that they're never shy, so please give us some questions. So can I ask you a question, Darcee, about the faculty-led study trips? Mm-hmm. Give me some examples. I mean, are these, how grand are these trips and how deep do these trips go?
Yeah, so they're pretty, this is a long AUP tradition. It's something that AUP has been a hallmark of the AUP experience for many, many years. One trip that's coming to mind actually is one that a colleague that I work with very, very closely leads. She takes students down to the famous caves in the south of France to see the paintings on the cave walls, those ones that we've all seen in a movie reproduced, or maybe in a painting or something like that, of some of the oldest human created art known to man. It's only a few hours away by train, and so they go down and check that out, and it feeds into a course where they're talking about culture and art over time. basically. So that's a short trip. A longer trip that is really exciting is one that's actually called the India Practicum. So students actually go to India for a month over the winter break, and it's for those students who are really interested in working with nonprofits or NGOs. They actually get paired up with a nonprofit or an NGO in India to work on a project for a month. It's something that's really concrete. For example, this last year, a student was paired up with a startup called Solar Village. And so basically what that startup does is they created a search engine like Google. And as people all over the world use their search engine, that usage funds electricity and lighting happening in rural villages in India. And the student who was paired up with them on this practicum actually created like a promotional explainer video for the company that they are now using. So the student in 10 days learned how to animate a video and created something so spectacular that it's on the web, and they're using it, this company, at conferences and to promote their very, very awesome and meaningful NGO. So study trips can be short or really long. They really run the gambit.
So one of the things that has slightly changed, I know, just really in the last year at AUP, is kind of what you might call the renovation of the curriculum, and making sure that students who are coming for a global liberal arts education are graduating, let's call it work ready. So I know that you have been central in organizing and inventing something called GPS. Can you tell everybody a little bit about GPS?
Sure. So GPS stands for the Global Professional Skills Program, which is an optional 4-year or 3-year for those students who come in with advanced standing, co-curricular program that aims to develop the whole student. And so what we mean by that is it's a program that's designed to help students connect the dots between what they do in the classroom and what they do outside of the classroom, and make sense of all of that to be ready to launch their post-graduation plans, whatever that is. So there's a whole lot that goes into it, but to try and sum it up succinctly, GPS has there are kind of 3 parts to it. Part 1 is a minimum involvement requirement. So what we've done is we've come up with a list of a huge variety of activities that students at AUP might be involved in. And for the GPS program, we say, okay, you need to do at least 2 or 3 activities that are in this category, 2 or 3 in another category. And the idea is to help students discover opportunities that they may not have otherwise taken advantage of. So that's the first step. You have to complete a certain number of activities while you're at AUP. The second step is happening during your senior year, or your final year at AUP. There is a workshop, one of a series of design thinking workshops that's called Designing Your Narrative. So there's also Designing Your AUP, which is for freshmen, and Designing Your Life, which is for sophomores and juniors. But the senior year, we have Designing Your Narrative. And that workshop, basically, we sit down with seniors and we say, okay, let's think about everything you've done at AUP, all of the experiential learning activities that you've taken advantage of, the courses that you have taken, your major, maybe any jobs that you've worked while you've been studying. We'll think about everything you've done. You'll think about what's coming next. What happens after you graduate? Are you planning to find an internship or a job? Or are you planning to apply to graduate school or even start your own company? We have lots of entrepreneurs at AUP. So what's happening next? And then we walk these seniors through a series of activities that helps them sort of articulate a narrative of themselves. So this is my objective. Here's everything I've done that is feeding me into it and that has prepared me. So that's step 2. And then step 3 is that the students, these GPS seniors, they actually create a final GPS presentation. And so in that presentation, they have to indicate what their objective is. So it may be to get a job or an internship or to go to a grad program. And we ask them to be really specific. So a specific graduate program at a specific institution or a specific type of internship with a specific type of company. So they identify an objective and then they put together a 4-minute narrative where they essentially pitch themselves to a prospective employer or to a graduate school admissions advisor or even to an angel investor who might invest in their startup. It's a hypothetical scenario, but it's couched in the reality of what their plans are. And so they submit that presentation, and like that, they complete the program. But of course, there's more. There's one really, really awesome optional part that many students take advantage of. In fact, we had close to 30 graduating seniors take advantage of the GPS senior panel presentations, where we actually bring in a collection of AUP employers, AUP alumni, and faculty to listen to our GPS seniors share their 4-minute narratives, give them feedback, and the top presentations, they actually get to present to the president's panel, which happens actually next week, or no, the week after. It's the week before our commencement ceremony. And so those top presentations, they present to the president and then her selection of panelists, and somebody actually gets a GPS award at graduation afterwards. So GPS is something that's designed to encourage students to take advantage of the full suite of opportunities available at AUP, and also to reward those students, to acknowledge them at the end of their time at AUP.
So an incoming freshman or an incoming transfer student is eligible to get involved and take part in this?
Eligible and highly encouraged.
Is it compulsory?
It is not compulsory. It's something that for now is optional. It may become compulsory in some way in the future, but I think probably it won't, because we think that the value of a program like GPS is the fact that it's for those students who are motivated to get involved in that way. So no, it's not compulsory. And in fact, you know, for some students, they may choose to complete only certain parts of the program that are more important for them in their mission.
Right. Designing your AUP.
For freshmen, yes.
For freshmen. Give me a little flavor.
What's that all about?
What's that all about?
So, designing your AUP is a workshop that was created by our president and our dean of student development, with a little bit of input from yours truly. And it's a workshop that we try to encourage freshmen to do their first semester. And in the workshop, we focus on a couple of things. The first thing is aligning your values with your vision for the future. So we take some time to walk through some really fun and probably unexpected for a lot of students activities that help us think about what really matters to you as a person. Why are you at university? The bigger questions. So instead of focusing on what do I want to major on or what classes am I going to take, we take 2 hours for you to focus on yourself and ask yourself the bigger picture questions. Why am I here? Where am I going? What's the point of all of this? And from there, we talk about how you can basically live your values while you're at AUP, how you can make the most of your time at AUP. And so we look at what matters to each of the students in the workshops, and we talk about them, about the services at AUP and the activities and things that they can do that will actually help them manifest those values in their day-to-day life, so that they don't arrive at their senior year wondering, where did the time go? And I never did that one thing that I was thinking I was going to do. We've put designing your AUP in place to help ensure that that doesn't happen, and that you invest your time in the most meaningful ways.
So do you think it's true to say that new students, incoming students, current students are kind of real stakeholders, partners in their education? Because it certainly sounds like you're helping whatever, what do people say now? They're co-creators. Is that
Yeah.
what this is?
That is exactly what this is. We were actually just talking about this earlier today with some colleagues. One of the things about experiential learning and these sorts of workshops and co-curricular activities is that it's really focused on students thinking critically and taking a bit of extra time to reflect on what really matters to them, and on themselves. Because in your coursework, you're of course learning about the world, you're learning about cultures, you're learning about languages, and of course you're fitting yourself in with all of that. But the focus in a classroom is generally learning knowledge about something. So in your co-curricular life, we're focused on helping you learn about yourself and make really intentional choices about how you're spending your time, because time goes by really quickly at university. So yeah, it's really all about co-creation and intentional decision making.
Incredible. I mean, that sounds distinctive. I don't know many universities that have students or judge students as being part of the education.
Yeah, I would agree, and that's why I personally am so excited about things like the GPS program at AUP.
Great.
I think it grants a lot of agency and puts a lot of responsibility on students in a good way.
Yeah, yeah. So we've got a couple of questions in, so nobody wants to hear me speak. So Toki, who seems to be an incoming student, has a good question. Do you have to speak French fluently in order to get involved?
Not at all. Because AUP is, of course, the American University of Paris, we're in Paris, and we all aspire to learn and speak really great French, but
right.
We don't all come here speaking perfect French. So, in fact, there are lots and lots of things that you can do without speaking French fluently. For example, all of those study trips that we talked about earlier are designed and run by AUP, and so you don't have to speak perfect French to take advantage of study trips. Similarly, a lot of our clubs and student leadership opportunities, there are some of them where speaking French is helpful, but it's not necessary to be involved in any of our clubs. And in fact, involvement in these co-curricular activities can sometimes help you improve your French.
Right. Okay.
Because we are collaborating and connecting with people in and around Paris.
Okay. So a question also from Sally. Sally asks, do alumni help with job placements?
They help, yeah, they do actually. Alumni help in many ways. So we maintain an internal job and internship opportunity database at AUP that is visible only to our community. And so the offers that we post there are sent directly to AUP by people who know and love and appreciate AUP students. And so oftentimes that includes alumni who live and work locally in Paris or even abroad, who send internship and job opportunities to current students. And it also includes our alumni or just our more general employer network, so people who have been hiring from AUP for years. So for example, just today, about an hour before this webinar, I received an email from one of our alumna who works at the OECD, which is the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, which, if you haven't heard of it, is an intergovernmental organization located in Paris that a lot of AUP students want to work at. And this alumna sent us, probably for the, I don't know, 10th time in the last 2 years, an internship opportunity just an hour ago. So our alumni help with internship and job opportunities.
Very good. So Sally obviously seems keen because she's sent me another question. Great question. How many internships can a student take before graduating?
So there's actually not a technical limit there.
Right, I didn't know that.
No, there isn't. There isn't. I think my record setting student registered, it was either 7 or 8 internships during her 4-year degree at AUP. I kid you not. So I think my statistics, if I'm not mistaken, say that somewhere around 70% of students after they graduate, they report having completed at least one internship. Many students end up doing more than that.
Right.
I would say the average is probably around 2 or 3 internships in a 4-year period. And in the Center for Academic, Career, and Experiential Advising, we highly recommend that students do more than one internship. Because one of the great things about internships is not just building your CV, but it's also learning about the world of work. You, as students, you spend a lot of time in a hypothetical sort of space where you're imagining the kind of job that you want, or you're imagining what it would be like to work in a certain company or doing a certain kind of job. Internships kind of give you a peek behind the curtain. You get to experience what it's really like to work in an intergovernmental organization or in an NGO. And the reality is that sometimes you love it and sometimes you don't, but either way, it's super important, because when you're testing out for the professional sphere in the context of an internship, the stakes are low, right? It's an internship. You're a student. You're meant to be learning. You're meant to be exploring. So we encourage many internships for our students. But I'm partial because I'm the crazy internship lady.
Okay. So just to kind of just to pick up on Sally's question, maybe too technical, but you do it as part of a course, it replaces a course, you do it for credit, do you pay for it? How does that work?
So internships can be taken for credit at AUP. No matter what you're majoring in, your internship can count as an elective. For many of our majors, internships can actually count towards your major requirements. So for example, in our computer science, journalism, and communications majors, an internship can be like your senior capstone activity. So you can definitely do internships for credit. You can do that one time. You can count 4 credits towards your 4 internship credits towards your degree. But then we also offer the option for the 0 credit internship. And that is where we have students who will do 3, 4, 5, 6 internships throughout their time at AUP.
Right. So is there a typical length that somebody does an internship for? Because I know that in France, at least my understanding is that they tend to be longer compared with other European countries.
They do. So in France, there's definitely a preference for the 6-month internship, because in France, internships are taken really seriously. Interns are typically not expected to be coffee-grabbing copy makers. Internships are meant to be learning experiences, and there's actually a very sophisticated kind of legal regime around all of this in France. So longer internships are more common, although we do actively cultivate shorter and part-time opportunities for our students who are, for example, currently taking classes but want to intern on the side.
Right.
So, yeah.
So would it be typical, well, typical, is relative, but would it be typical for an AUP student to say normal course load is 4 credit courses? Would somebody be doing 2 4-credit courses in a kind of full-blown internship in parallel?
Yes, that happens fairly frequently, actually. And this is one of the reasons why we want our freshmen to start talking with the Center for Internship and Experiential Advising early, because the earlier you start thinking about these things, the earlier you can craft your degree plan essentially to accommodate a semester like that, where you take a couple less courses and focus on having some extra time to intern.
So another question, Darcee, from Jack, who is an incoming student from Botswana, who asks the question, how often does an internship lead to a job?
Yeah, so that's actually something we're really proud of at AUP, because we have actual stats on this. So if we look at just those students or those instances of an internship where the student is a senior or a master's student, meaning they are at the place in their career, in their academic career, where they are actually looking to get hired. 30% of our internships result directly in job offers. Like literally the company where the student is interning offers them a job at the end. That is extremely high when you consider the fact that a lot of our students who are interning don't have the legal eligibility at that time to work in the place where they're interning. They have the legal eligibility to intern, but maybe not to get a work contract. And in spite of that, 30% of those internships are transforming directly into jobs. And that doesn't count all of those internships that students are doing that are making significant contributions to their ability to get a job, just maybe not at the place where they intern, which is very, very significant for them.
Right. So one of the, we live in a world of brands, and we live in a world of, visibility and public visibility. Where do we have internships? What companies do frequently offer internships? You mentioned the OECD as an organization. So where do our students, AUP students, have the offer of an internship? And also, it's a slightly different subject, so a longer answer, but who employs AUP graduates?
So I think we have a slide actually with a lot of fancy logos, and please everyone note this is not exhaustive, it's just a small selection, because as you saw on the last slide, we've got about 200 internships registered at AUP every year. But I went through and just found a few logos of a variety of different companies. So you've got UNESCO, UNEP, OECD, there's also the United Nations. Those are all intergovernmental organizations where we routinely send students. We've got here some publications, so like Women's Wear Daily. I should have added Vogue. We have a relationship with Vogue for the last 2 years, of a pretty well-sustained one. Estee Lauder, Yves Saint Laurent. So we have a lot of students who come to AUP because they're interested in the fashion industry or the cosmetics industry, because of course it's Paris. And so of course we're sending students into internships. L'Oreal as well. Let's see, what else do we have? For students interested in film, we've got a relationship with the Marché du Film Festival de Cannes. So that's that really famous film festival that we've all heard of. We've got relationships with a lot of different ad and communications agencies. So like Proximity BBDO is a great example, Alexandra PR, and these companies work with all kinds of brands. You were asking what kind of companies hire AUP. All of these companies, we have alumni working at every single one of the companies on this list. Proximity BBDO is a major AUP employer because we've got lots of students with who've studied communications who end up there. Let's see, what else is here that I could call attention to? Oh yes, Sotheby's is a new and growing contact. We've had a number of students intern at Sotheby's recently, so if you're interested in the art world, and same goes for the Mona Bismarck American Center for Art and Culture. So yeah, I mean, it really runs the gambit. And the great thing at AUP is that we have, of course, our network of employers who know us and who love AUP students. But what's really wonderful is how enterprising AUP students tend to be. So every semester, many times in the semester, we have students who go and find amazing internships at amazing companies or with amazing organizations. They go and we allow them to do those internships. Of course, you can intern as an AUP student in any company where you want to. And what's great is that when an AUP student finds an internship at an amazing company somewhere in the world, they always rock it out. They always do a great job.
Yeah.
And then that employer or that company becomes part of our network, and they come back and hire another AUP student afterwards.
Okay, so I mean, fantastic. So Crystal Finley, hi, has asked a really good question that is completely off the back of that. Internships in fashion. You know, it's Paris, it's AUP. Tell me about fashion.
We sure do. So we've got lots of internships in fashion. Before I talk about the internships, because there's actually two ways to be getting some hands-on experience in the fashion industry in Paris. And one of them, which is probably what you're imagining, is it Crystal, is Fashion Week, right? Because that happens, I think, 3 times a year. 4 times a year in Paris, and it's very famous, and it's definitely something, if you're interested in fashion, that you're probably imagining yourself being involved with. And the great news is that we have relationships with dozens of fashion brands that participate to Paris Fashion Week, and that means 4 times a year they are reaching out to us, trying to find students to come and help them during Fashion Week. So students join these fashion brands during their Fashion Week to help with setting up their showroom or preparing their models for the lineup before they go on the runway. I mean, it's just really exciting because it's anywhere from 2 to 3 weeks of really intense yet flexible experience for our students. So again, earlier today, I was with a student who is interested in fashion. She's one of our seniors, and she we were looking at her CV, and I said to her, wow, it's just so impressive how many times you have worked at Fashion Week, you know, is this helping you in your internship search? And she said, yeah, you know, and I believe she recently got hired, I'm forgetting where exactly. I think she may have been having conversations with Chanel, but in any case, one really big brand.
Yeah.
So there's Fashion Week, and then of course there are also internships. And what's interesting about the fashion industry is that there are so many ways to get involved. At AUP, one of the most common things people do when they are interning with a fashion brand is some sort of communications related activity or event planning or something of the like. And so we send a lot of students to do that kind of work. And then also there are some publications. So for example, on this slide on the left-hand corner, you see Women's Wear Daily, which is a pretty well-known fashion publication. There's also Vogue. We have 2 students at Vogue right now. One of them is doing translation from French to English, which is actually something that for those of you who maybe don't speak perfect French yet, you'd be amazed at how just a little bit of French is enough. That plus a good translation tool for you to work doing that kind of translation for an organization like Vogue, which is just awesome. So
great. So the other kind of big area, you talked a lot about careers, you talked a lot about, you know, leaving here and going into a job, graduate school.
yeah,
You know, we know from the admissions office that we have an increasingly able intake, and who actually are on a path that means that the undergraduate degree is a stepping stone to the graduate degree.
Sure.
So how do you get involved in terms of advising students about grad school, and then where do AUP students go to grad school?
Sure. So do you mind going to this one, Tim, the career prep support slide, and then we'll move on to another one as well. So there are a few ways that our undergrad students can seek support at AUP as they prepare to apply to graduate school. One of them is through the Center for Academic, Career, and Experiential Advising. So you can see on the slide here, there are a lot of ways that students can meet with us. We schedule one-on-one meetings. We have drop-in hours every week. We have resume drop-ins every week. And there's lots of workshops and events as well. And in that listing there, I have one that says personal statement writing. So they're basically, students come to us hopefully earlier than later. Usually sometime early in the junior year is ideal. And we start by giving them sort of the basic to-do list, you know, the first steps towards planning for your graduate applications, which obviously includes doing some research, coming up with a list of the schools and the programs that appeal to you, and listing their deadline for application. That's like the first thing. Make sure you don't miss the deadline. And then from there, we work with students on crafting a resume that is tailored for a graduate school application, because that's really important for graduate schools. We also work with students one-on-one and in groups on writing personal statements for graduate schools, because that's essential. It's really important. And so those services are available through the ACE Center, as we are called. Students also get support from their faculty. So at AUP, you can come to the ACE Center for a professional advisor, but you also, as a student, every student has a faculty advisor. So that is a member of the faculty who teaches in your academic department based on what your major is. And that's your point person for everything academic. That's your person who will help you register for courses, but also that's a person who has followed a similar path to you, probably in the past, and who is there to help you, figure out how to get to graduate school. So those faculty advisors will also help with personal statements and also writing recommendation letters for AUP students that are applying to grad school. So those are a couple of ways that you can get support. And then if we go to this next slide, graduate studies and career outcomes, we've got some stats. You were asking about, how many students end up going to grad school and even where they go. Those are the next slides. We can show everybody a little snapshot of where AUP graduates end up. But if we look at these stats, you'll see 46% of our undergraduate alumni end up going to graduate or professional degree programs, and 17% of our graduate or master's alumni end up going to graduate or professional degree programs. So it's a pretty significant portion of our alumni who end up going on to grad schools. And we can just maybe show you guys, I've got 2 slides here. This is where a little list of some of the institutions where our undergraduates have gone on to study. So Christie's Education, which is pretty cool. Holt International Business School is massive. INSEEC is a very well-known school in Paris, as is Sciences Po. We've got the London School of Economics, which is amazing, MIT, the Sorbonne in Paris, Oxford, NYU. AUP students end up all over the world in graduate programs doing all kinds of really cool things. We've got one other slide there. I'm not sure if we have any prospective graduate students on the line, but just in case there are, there's no, the last one. Yeah, there we go. A little list of places where our graduate alumni end up going, either for a second master's but more commonly for a PhD. Right. So yeah, a number of really prestigious institutions, and again, these are not exhaustive lists. It's just a little selection.
Okay, so we've just launched a poll, as everybody's seen, and we have 100% interest in part-time jobs.
Aha.
So from the technical point of view, I can answer a question. Obviously, you come as either you come as a non-EU student. You come in with effectively, we say 20 hours a week part-time work, which rises in vacation time. But Darcee, what do you see of the student body in terms of what they do in terms of part-time work?
Sure. Yeah, there are a number of really interesting things that you can do in Paris, right? Because it's such an international city. So I would like to say at first that it is very possible to find part-time work in Paris as a student who does not speak fluent French. It's super possible. And in fact, that's what a lot of our students do. So some common things are working in the tourism industry. So I myself, actually, I maybe should have mentioned at the beginning.
You didn't mention, and I didn't want to ask you. So tell the audience what you're going to tell them.
Well, I'm actually a proud AUP alumna. I received my master's degree from AUP back in 2012, and then I and worked in Paris for a while before coming back and working at AUP. But I myself worked in the tourism industry while I was a student at AUP. I worked as a tour guide, giving bicycle and Segway tours in Paris and at Versailles, that really famous castle just outside of Paris. So that was really awesome for me because I learned a whole lot about French history that I didn't know before, which was awesome. And also it made my French so much better. I didn't need French to be able to do that job, but as a consequence of that job, I was speaking with different service providers that were providing things for our tours, and my French got way better. So working as a tour guide or at a hotel, for example, or in a restaurant, these are things that are pretty common part-time jobs for AUP students, and that tick a few boxes. You know, you make a little bit of extra cash to support yourself, but you also cultivate a great opportunity for yourself to work on your French. So voila, those are a few examples.
Okay, and is there something about, you know, a large number, 105 plus nationalities on campus? Is there something about French parents or French families or French employers liking the fact that AUP students often have a good level of native English?
Oh yeah, thank you. I forgot to mention, we actually have, in addition to our job and internship database, there's another database that we manage on campus called the classified ads, where we receive hundreds of part-time job offers, literally hundreds, every academic year, from families, local families, who are searching for a AUP student to either come and babysit or tutor their children. Why? Because they all want their kids to learn how to speak English really well and be tutored by super smart AUP students. So yeah, actually that's very, very common. We have so many students who are working with a local French family, doing tutoring or babysitting, and the remuneration is pretty good in general.
Right.
And you usually get kind of like an hourly wage, and sometimes even they offer you living accommodations. So wealthy French families often will have a big apartment on the second or third floor of a building, and then they will have a small, what we call the chambre de bonne, up on the top. And so they'll own that, and they'll give that to whoever it is that picks their kids up on after school, essentially.
Right.
It's really common at AUP, and it's great. Again, a great way to make some money and to kind of immerse yourself in French culture.
And you think a lot of students do that, and they offset some of their costs?
Definitely, without any doubt. I can, again, as an alumna of the institution, having been a student myself and watching my friends who were students as well, almost all of my friends when I was at AUP were working on the side, babysitting, tutoring, being a tour guide to offset their costs.
Right. Right, so we've got another question from an incoming student, Brian, and Brian asks, are there any tutoring jobs on campus?
There are actually. We have a center at AUP called the Academic Resource Center, ARC for short. And so that is a center where we've got peer tutors there who are hired by the center or nominated by faculty to work with other students either on their writing, we have a writing lab, or as a course link tutor. So a great variety of courses at AUP have a specific tutor designated to that course, somebody who took the course before and did really well, and so the faculty who teach the course say, hey, you'll be the tutor next year. We also have a math clinic, and there's one other thing, I think it's like a digital media or something like that, but that is an excellent opportunity for students to get involved and also earn a bit of money.
Right, okay. Okay, so Darcee, we've kind of exhausted the questions and most of the slides. Why, I mean, you're great because you've been here as a student. In terms of your current role, when you look at incoming freshmen and transfers and graduate students, what's the thing that sets AUP apart from things like it, in the area of experiential learning? Because it's so important.
Yeah, well, the first thing that comes to my mind is something that sets AUP apart when it comes to experiential learning, but also generally as a university. You mentioned earlier, we have students here at AUP that are coming from more than 100 different nationalities. And with the small total number of students that we have, that creates a diversity in our campus community that is, I would imagine, unrivaled in the world. I personally have never heard of a university where you're in a class with an average of 5 to 10 different nationalities. It's just amazing. And what that means is that when you're involved in a club, or when you sign up for a study trip, or when you come to a workshop to prepare for your resume to apply for internships, that means that you're doing all of those things in this incredibly international context. And I think that is probably one of the things that most sets AUP apart.
Right. Yeah, that's great. So I was about to close off, but we just got a last minute question. Can you stay with us a bit longer?
Absolutely.
Okay, so generally, do you offer any jobs outside of France?
You mean
in terms of internships,
yeah,
in terms of where people, are people coming to AUP and are they just staying in France, or is the degree, is the experience, is it transportable?
It's completely transportable. I believe last year, I was just looking at the numbers, we had internships registered in about 30 different countries around the world. So for example, we had a student do an internship in Sotheby's, but in Madrid. We had another student do an internship at Agence France Presse in Nigeria. So yeah, the AUP professional experience certainly translates all over the globe, and I think that mirrors what I was saying before, the diversity of our community, because students come to AUP and they live and they study in Paris, but many of them are taking those experiences back to their home country, or even to a third destination. So
great. Okay, thank you. So we're going to close off there. I just want to remind everybody that if you haven't already confirmed your place here at AUP for fall 2019, we're filling up. So don't hesitate. We want to make sure that you get your space on campus, and we'll be sending out a short feedback survey for this. We're actually going to do it now, I think. Okay. So once this is closed, we'll be sending out a feedback survey. Okay, so Darcee, Caron, thank you very much. That's been great.
Thank you, Tim. I hope to see all of you in the fall.
Okay. Thanks very much. Bye-bye, everybody. Thanks.